Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our second event this year with Ilkka Paananen, the co-founder and CEO of Supercell. My name is Duan Nguyen, and I'm the co-president of the Wharton Undergraduate Entrepreneurship Club. Supercell is the developer of top global games Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, Brawl Stars, Heyday, and Boom Beach, games that make up a huge part of all of our childhoods. I was personally obsessed with Clash of Clans for the longest time. The Decacorn's 5 games have consistently remained in the global top 10 and have amassed over 100 million daily players. What an amazing achievement. But how did Mr. Paananen and his team get there in the first place? At the young age of 22, Mr. Paananen became the co-founder and CEO of a small game development company called Sumea. Sumea soon became the leading European mobile game publisher, and Mr. Paananen and his co-founder sold it to Digital Chocolate, a Silicon Valley-based gaming company. Mr. Paananen worked there for 6 years, working his way up to the president role. Him and his co-founder from Sumea decided to collaborate again to co-found Supercell alongside 4 others, based on everything they had learned from their decades of experience in the gaming industry. Today, Supercell's amazing success can be partly attributed to its emphasis on culture, which we will dive into during the Fireside chat. In particular, Mr. Paananen is known as the least powerful CEO since he values leaving power to the hands of the developers. I will now hand it over to James, my co-president.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Duan, for the introduction. I'm James Klusaritz, WUEC's other co-president. Just for some background, our club hosts some of the world's most renowned entrepreneurs and startup investors. We will also be hosting a $10,000 pitch competition for hard tech startup concepts at the end of the semester, so stay tuned for that. Finally, a quick shout out to our sponsor, iExperience. iExperience gives students the opportunity to develop cutting-edge career skills through experiential learning programs around the world. To learn more about iExperience and for a chance to win a free meal of your choice from Breadhead, WUEC's in-house food ordering platform, go to the link below in chat and click apply now. And with that being said, I will now pass it off to our moderator, Professor David Hsu, a professor at Wharton with research interests in entrepreneurship, innovation, and management. Welcome back, Professor Hsu.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Ilkka, for being with us. I speak for myself. I know I speak for everyone here at the Wharton School to thank you for being with us for this great event. Let me just preview the agenda for today. We'll take about 40 minutes for you and I to talk. I prepared some questions and we'll have a dialogue, and then we'll reserve the final 15 minutes or so for everyone in the audience here to engage with you and to ask you questions directly, if that's okay. Okay, excellent, let's get started. So one of the things that's kind of the hallmark, as I can tell from Supercell, is you've got this philosophy: aim very high and really build these enduring games. And to me, the name of the company says everything: Supercell, right? You're empowering these teams. And so my first question to you is, where did this philosophy come from? Is this as a result of your prior experience in the game developing industry, some other formative experience? Why give so much power to these teams?
So first of all, Duan and James, David, thanks so much for having me. Great to be part of this. To answer the question, it really this is a kind of a learning that I think it started to grow on us during our first company, which called Sumea, and it took us a while to kind of realize that, and it's kind of funny to look back, because it actually took us almost 10 years to figure that out. So we're quite slow learners, I guess. But and it sounds so simple when you say it, but ultimately, when you give these creative people the complete kind of freedom and independence, but then also the responsibility, that creates a very stimulating, very innovative working environment. One there, these creative geniuses, they actually really enjoy working in that type of environment, and they feel that maybe one way to kind of describe the culture is, and what people tell me, is that at Supercell they can make the kind of biggest impact that they've ever been able to do in their careers, and maybe that's the kind of best way to kind of describe it. And you know, when you have that type of environment, like what we were hoping for, like in the very beginning, is that it would become this talent magnet. So and our explicit goal was to kind of be the best place for the best people and for the best teams in the world to create the best games, and then eventually, like, that actually I think has become a reality, and these days, you know, people join us from all over the world. In our Helsinki studio, for example, we have people from 45 different countries. I think close to like 70% of the recruitment actually comes from outside Finland. So they're very lucky in that the best game creators in the world have decided to join us on our journey.
So it sounds like your answer would be, you really empower these individuals and teams, because then it can help you attract the best talent out there. My question to you, we have in the audience today a lot of the future business leaders around the world. And so my question to you is a follow-up to your answer, which is, does this formula of empowering individuals and teams, does that work everywhere? I mean, is it something special about the creative game industry? Could you imagine if you were CEO of in some other industry or context, is this precisely the type of culture and value that you would place there, because that's going to have the enduring value? Or try to kind of give us some of your thinking around, this is an under-recognized way of organizing and empowering and recruiting and retaining and motivating, or any other thoughts along these lines?
It's a great question, and something that I actually get asked a lot, because we have a very unique model based on these independent cells or teams. You know, and of course, you know, I've done my whole career in the creative industry in games, and obviously, like, this model has, you know, clearly it works very well for us. But on the other hand, you know, we built the company like from day one. I mean, on this foundation, like this was the kind of the founding idea. So I've often wondered that, you know, whether this is something that you kind of could change your company into. So, for example, if you had built a company of, say, 1,000 people, like, would it be possible to kind of do this type of a change? Because we've actually, like, every single hire that we've made in the past almost 12 years, we've made this one idea in mind, and we're looking for people who would be like a kind of a fit to this type of culture. So one of my, and again, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but it would feel logical to me that if you want to build a company like this, you probably need to do it like, you need to build it from day one to be like that, and you have to do every single hire like that idea in mind. And there were, like, in what type of industries you could apply this idea to. I think at least we've seen that that it works really well in a kind of creative industries, and I would tend to think that the more creative the industries, probably the better it works. But then, you know, if you, I don't know, like, if you could apply it to like something like completely different, say manufacturing, for example. There oftentimes if you think about something like assembly line work, like, you know, to go to the other extreme, you know, maybe it isn't the best model, but you know, maybe like just finally, like, the one like just fundamental belief that I have is that, I mean, and I believe it to be true about all human beings, that if you just trust them completely, and you know, those people, they feel that trust, you know, I'd like to believe that it really, like, you know, it's very motivating, it's very inspiring for those people if they can feel trusted. And maybe that's this idea of trust, and a complete trust that can actually be brought to like almost every organization. But again, you know, all I've done is been in the games industry, so I really, I mean, can't say for sure, but that's what I would like to believe.
No, it certainly rings true that if you empower individuals, that's going to be highly motivating, particularly in the type of industry that you're in, which leads me to my next question. I've heard you in other forums describe your industry more of an art than a science. And so you're somewhat skeptical about the role of, say, AI or data analytics that will lead you to the next great billion-dollar game. And I want to kind of interrogate this a little bit more. because we're living in a very data-rich environment in which you can really deconstruct the behavior of your users. This is when they get really engaged, this is when they get less engaged. So why wouldn't we use all that data and insight, stitch it together and kind of bring it all together into the next great game? Why does that type of philosophy fail?
Yeah, well, I think it depends on the game's life cycle. So maybe like the way that we think about this today is that Supercell is not a data-driven organization, rather we are data-informed organization. And what that means is that, because games ultimately, it's a creative industry. You could compare, I think, it to like movies or music or books or art, anything like that. And I think at the core of that belief and that idea is kind of creative people. There's a core group of creative people who like they just can figure out and create an idea from scratch. And I just fundamentally don't believe that like almost any amount of data will lead you to that great idea. But once we kind of like build a game around that idea and we kind of put it out, then actually we do obviously collect a lot of data, and then actually data does of course play a role. But we can use that data to kind of validate whether we've been right or wrong, in our kind of this creative process, and whether players actually like what we've created or do they not like it. And then of course when it gets a lot more detailed, so we can examine different parts of the game, like which parts they might like and which not, etc. But again, like it sort of doesn't start with the data. It starts with just belief in creativity.
No, that completely resonates. If you think about blockbuster movies or blockbuster books, we would have already had machines do it and be successful, yet we don't do that. We have fundamentally a lot of people pitching ideas. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong, sometimes you have sleeper hits, etc. Which leads me to my next question. You guys, your bar for release is sky high. You've released over 12 years, some 5 titles. And so give me your thoughts about, on the one hand, that's terrific because every single one of those billion-dollar, business. But do you feel like you're missing some doubles or triples, or how do you think about this? It feels very risky. So give me your thoughts, especially in this environment in which your last big hit was released in December of 2018. And so are you feeling a little bit of pressure to do more of the doubles or triples rather than the complete, grand slams out there?
Well, first of all, maybe I should talk about the kind of the mission of the company, or our dream, as we call it, which is to like create, these great games for which as many people as possible would play for years, and these games that would be essentially remembered forever. And of course, that sets a very, very, very high bar. But on the other hand, like if we are successful at creating such a game, what it means is that it's not a